All right, Pasadenans and heroes everywhere, it is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, and I'm here for PJTC's RabbiChat. Here you can ask me anything at all that you'd like to ask about Judaism, about Jewish traditions, about Jewish people, but maybe you were afraid to ask, or didn't occur to you till just now to think this. I could ask questions about this. That's not what religion is all about. Well, I'm here for some surprising news that questions are the root of who we are, and your questions are more than welcome here. In fact, I have a question for you today. I want to know, what is your favorite part of Shabbat services? What is the indispensable Shabbat experience for you? What is it just not Shabbos without? So we're going to talk about that and more in just a moment after this brief musical interlude. Stick around. All right, everybody, coming back at you. Let me switch over to camera one in the Rabbi John Carrier studio here, coming to you live from sunny Southern California. And this is RabbiChat from PJTC with me, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, and I am here to answer whatever questions you have about Judaism, about the religion, about the people, recipe, advice. I've got some of my own. Very nice to see all of you from my studio. You can see I've got a mirror to makes the place look bigger. And the fine print, I sure haven't tried yet. But we have our all of the Jewish things here in our home. So delighted to join you for this session of RabbiChat Ask Me Anything. Today, though, is a little bit different. I have a question for you. And my question for you is, what is your favorite part of Shabbat services? What is the part where, let's say, you know, there's services rationing or something. You're on a desert island and somebody says, you can't have any, you know, there's a ship and a shipwreck where we're fresh out of Shabbat stuff. You can't have anything except for like one or two things about your Shabbat service. It's a weird scenario, I know. just play along. What is it that makes the Shabbat service experience for you? And at first I was going to ask you, what is your favorite part about Shabbat? And, you know, not everybody's going to answer services. Just me? Okay. But there's a very important intention behind this question, which I will reveal in just a moment. But first, I want to see who's on the call here with me. I see Du Alexin is on Twitch. Nice to see you, brother. Natalie Serrata is on YouTube Live. We're in different platforms today. Natalie says, Shalom, y'all. Speaking my language there. Carla J. Sitting with Anne-Marie, Joan, and Neil. Oh, I see what you did there. Favorite part of Shabbat services, sitting with your friends, and I missed that, too. I missed that very much, in fact. Natalie is asking, Rabbi, how can I watch the lecture at PJTC tonight? No info yet from the office. What I'm going to do, Natalie, this is a little private conversation between me and Natalie, y'all. Just give us a second. So as soon as our bulletin comes out, which is about 4 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going to forward it to you so that you can have the link to tonight. And I want to make sure you're there. I'm just waiting for that email to come out, and then I'm going to forward it right to you. So likewise, if anybody's curious about what we're doing at PJTC, you want to learn how to plug into things, whether you're a member yet or not, let me know. And I know some people. I got the hookup. So very nice to see everybody. Dakota Black says Shabbat Shalom, Rob. Nice to see you, Dakota Black. It's not quite Shabbat yet, but you know it's okay to say Shabbat Shalom on Thursday. You know, I don't know what's the cutoff point. Maybe Wednesday afternoon. You know, typically speaking, once you get about halfway through the week, if you know you're not going to see somebody before Shabbat, it's okay to say Shabbat Shalom to them, even if it's not Shabbat yet or not even close. But so it's nice to see you, Dakota Black. I've returned. How have you been? Well, it's been a couple. It's been a minute. I'll tell you. It's been some crazy times here in Southern California / planet Earth. But I've been pretty good. I've maintained my health, maintained my sanity. Thank God I'm working and I get to do a job that I love, which includes talking to all y'alls. So things are good. We're healthy. You might hear in the background my new friend Callie whining a little bit. She's in her Betty by time. It's crate time right now. I'll share with you guys, if I haven't yet, that we had a trainer come over yesterday, fully masked up, fully protected. But a trainer came to our home, and this was a recommendation of a friend of mine, Debbie, who I was telling her I have a German Shepherd. She's a little bit on the bitey side. I understated it a bit. And she says, I have the person for you. She hooked me up with this guy. I'm not going to do a commercial here for him because this is a PJTC thing, and we're not in the business of selling airtime. But if anybody knows someone or is someone who needs a trainer for a German Shepherd stat, call me. I've got your person. He's amazing. And just working with us on a few different things, some things counterintuitive, some things contrary to everything we've heard from our vet or read online about bitey puppies, just gave us a few ideas. And watching the change in our friend Callie over the space of, minutes, really. I'll put it to you this. I met him outside while I was walking the dog, and he showed me a few different ways to walk her, a few different ways to interact with her and not interact with her while we're walking. And specifically, like, when you get a puppy, all you want to do is, like, pet the puppy and hug the puppy and kiss the puppy and do all the things to the puppy. He's like, you're abusing your dog, right? No, he didn't say it that way. But, he says, when does the puppy bite you? And we say, every time we reach for the puppy. And he said, well, the puppy's defending itself because the puppy doesn't know that you're not trying to attack her and invading her space, and she's defending herself. And so there are lots of ways you could show affection to her besides, hulking over her like some kind of aggressive chimp and petting her. And so just showed some different things, immediate behavior change, brought the trainer and Callie in. Again, we're all masked up. We're just there to learn. And the expression on my wife's face, watching the change in Callie's behavior, was like watching a 4-year-old in a magic show. She was, eyes, you can't see the rest of her face, but eyes big as dinner plates, and just amazed that this is working. So it's going well. And so again, if you want somebody specifically to help out with German Shepherds who are I'm not going to brag, but kind of a breed apart. These are very smart dogs and pick up on signals maybe different from other dogs. So it was a good time. Dakota Black said, oops, said Shabbat Shalom. Oops, I thought it was Friday here. Lately, all my days run together. I am with you, Dakota Black. Ditto. So, if I didn't have my Thursday meeting days today and my Thursday live stream, I wouldn't know that it was Thursday. So, but we are on live, which means it's either Tuesday or Thursday, and we already did the Tuesday one. So, some people already answered my question. Natalie says, my favorite part of Shabbat service is the Torah service. Very popular. Sometimes people say, hey, Rabbi, what time are services? And I say, well, they're at 9:30. And then they'll say, Rabbi, what time is the Torah service? And I'll say, well, the Torah service is part of the regular service, which starts at 9:30. So, but I know what game I'm in. I know that every synagogue Saturday morning has 2 seatings. there's the early seating, there's the early bird crowd, and then there's the second seating for the Torah service. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just observing it. I am an observant Jew. So good to see Death Priest here. So do you guys just reread the same religious text? Yeah, kind of, a little bit. We read the Torah over again every year. As one of my teachers told this story when he was a child. He asked his father, why do we read the same Torah every single year on that annual cycle? And his father says, yes, every year the Torah is the same, but you are different. And there are ways to get more out of that text the deeper you go and come back to it. So, very nice to see everybody here. There's a very special reason I'm asking this question. And that reason is as follows. Cantor Ruth and I are doing something wacky, doing something zany, doing something experimental, doing something vital and holy. And this has been coming out of various discussions we've been having with people in the community, the wonderful volunteers on our ritual committee that helps us plan services and gives us a kind of a sounding board for crazy ideas that we have. And I'll say with great gratitude that PJTC is this wonderful mix of a traditional community in terms of like the prayers that we say, the language that we use in those prayers. It checks a lot of the boxes for me. Let's say I didn't grow up a traditional davener, but I've learned to appreciate it. And also a place that's open-minded about innovation. And so we thought, okay, if not now, when, right? If not now, when? Especially because we've been forced to take on the constraint of a live stream service, which is hard. And it's hard for lots of reasons. I will say that if I've learned anything in 6 years of being a rabbi, it's that Jewish prayer works best when you get as many people together in one room, sitting as close together as possible, and preferably singing. And we can't do that. It turns out we probably have more people attending our Shabbat services than ever in terms of the number of people who are connecting with it through live streaming. But we can't get all these people together the way we used to get them together. And that's for the right reasons. That's for safety, right? That's to make sure we have a community there for us when we need it and that we don't just collapse because of sickness and other things. But we can't, even if we could get in the same room together, we would have to sit 6 feet apart. And singing, forget about it, right? There's various scientific studies, and the deep breaths and the projected voice and all that stuff also projects the moisture that has the germs in it even farther than talking. So those things which I thought were essential to Jewish prayer are now off the table. And also appreciating that we're now coming into people's homes and we're sharing a service together that way. So as long as we're being constrained and being inspired, forced even to do things a little bit differently, why stop there? And so in the month, and you're going to hear it here first. I break a lot of news on this show. That's why you should watch the show. And you'll hear more about it. But in some weeks to come, not this week. This week's we've already got something cool going on. That's Alan Edson of the NAACP coming to speak during our Friday night services. He's actually coming to PJTC. We're spacing everybody out. We are washing everybody's hands. We're keeping it careful. But he's coming to PJTC so that he can be a part of our live stream experience this Friday night. That's Alan Edson, head of the Pasadena branch of NAACP, coming to talk on Friday night at PJTC, 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Rabbi, what time is Alan Edson going to talk? The service starts at 7:30. Please come then and hang out until he talks. So that's what they call a callback. But in the coming summer, there will be times when our service looks a little bit different. And I don't want to say much more than that, just because we want to be very intentional about how we communicate this so that we don't cause a panic, so that we don't freak people out or oversell expectations. But there are going to be some changes to our services as an experiment. We'll see how it goes. But I decided before we do that, we need to ask the question, what is essential to people's experience of Shabbat services? If you're somebody who has, regularly or occasionally went to Shabbat services when they were in a physical location, if you are currently participating in Shabbat services via live streaming or even going in person, I heard Chabad's open up again. What's your favorite? What's your thing? Like, what's, for some people, first we started this conversation with High Holidays. I said, what's your Avinu Malkeinu? Right? Avinu Malkeinu is this one song that's a part of the High Holidays liturgy that just gets people right in the kishkas. Like, you don't know, if you don't know any other song from the High Holidays, you know Avinu Malkeinu. And when everybody's standing it up and singing it together, it just that's what makes it feel like, aha, this is Rosh Hashanah, right? This is what I've been waiting for all year. So what's that moment for you in Shabbat? And Natalie shared the Torah service for her as her favorite part of services. D. Willexen shares, I like Shabbat liturgy. That's something I can do even without a congregation, albeit somewhat abridged. Right. Still, also, I enjoy listening to the rabbi's lesson. When they really dig into the Torah. So, for some people, it's the hearing the Torah read. For some people, it is the, let's say, pageantry of the Torah service. In the sense of, I love taking the Torah scroll out and walking it around the building and everybody, shaking hands, Shabbat Shalom, and all that stuff. It's a little bit dissonant if you haven't grown up with that to see this kind of kavod, this sort of honor being paid to a scroll that's going around the building. It might even look, chas v'shalom, a little bit idolatrous in the sense that, oh, they're worshiping a book. Isn't that weird of them? But it's not that at all. It's the sense that, this Torah, in perhaps another stonier form, was a gift from God that guides our lives today. And so we don't worship the Torah scroll per se, but we give it a kind of reverence, not based on its material, but based on its source. So for me, that's a big part of Shabbat services, is that pageantry with the Torah scroll, the particular way of reading from the Torah scroll, the particular way of lifting up the Torah scroll so everybody can see it. And I especially love it when there's something a little bit different about how it's written, like when you get to Shirat Hayam, the calligraphy changes. When you get to the Ten Commandments, you can actually, from the back of the room, see the Ten Commandments in the scroll because it's spaced differently in the column. And I love pointing that stuff out. Dakota says, I like the part where everyone talks to everyone. Is that one part of the service? I don't know. Depending on who you're sitting with, some people might be talking to each other the whole time. And, I don't knock it. It's the old joke, they say, Cohen and Schwartz both go to the service. Cohen goes to the service to talk to God. Schwartz goes to the service to talk to Cohen. That too is a Jewish tradition. So that's a piece of it. Like, I asked this question to our education director and to our youth director, and what's your key moment? And a big piece of it for a lot of people is the community aspect of it. You could get there and sing Happy Birthday and play bingo or mahjong or whatever, and it might feel essentially the same, but without the people there, it's not remotely the same. That's another thing that's really challenging about these times, is fostering and encouraging that sense of community when people used to get their Jewish community from coming to a building at a particular time on a particular day of the week. But that's when your friends were going to be there. And now we don't have that for now. So I really appreciate people sharing things like the Torah service, the liturgy. For me, I really appreciate the arc of the liturgy on Saturday morning. It's like this, for me, it's like an opera in 4 or 5 parts. You start with Birchot HaShachar, you start with praise and gratitude, and then you move into some singing very intentionally in Psukei Zimra, those psalms and songs that kind of warm you up before you get into the hardcore praying so you don't pull something. And then going right into kind of our holiest prayers, the arc from the call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, up into the Shema, and then kind of down again with the blessing after the Shema, and then up again in the Amidah, this moment of private meditation. And then you close that out, and then you do a little learning, right? You have that whole arc of it, and then you have the Torah service, and then you have a reprise of meditation with the Musaf Amidah. KG Wilcox says, I'm a sucker for pageantry and a good sermon, but the lengths of service can be off-putting. Bring a snack. I'm with you. I mean, one of the ways is one of the things that we're talking about is how can you very intentionally make the services shorter without losing any of the essential elements. And that's another reason why I'm asking the question, what are the essential elements to you? If we can all agree that a particular psalm is like, yeah, we're there, but this isn't doing it for anybody. Maybe we skip it next week, and maybe we spend more time on a thing that we don't give enough time to. And I'll tell you, I've told this story before, but I'm John, so nice to meet you. I'll tell it again. I was once asking my teacher, and shortly after I became a rabbi and became responsible for leading a lot of services in my synagogue, I realized that the services weren't working for people the way we had intended them to work for people. Work in a spiritual sense of what job does it have to do? That's sort of a design thinking question. What is it that Shabbat is trying to accomplish, and how do we get it to accomplish that if it's not doing so? And my rabbi answered my question with a question: what would Rabbi Akiva say if he popped up out of the ground outside, famous synagogue X in Pico Robertson neighborhood of Los Angeles on a Saturday morning and walked into the service? And I was completely lost. I said, I have no idea. He said, Rabbi Akiva would be furious. I'm like, what do you mean by that? I was like, doesn't Rabbi Akiva like services? He seemed to be a pretty religious dude. And he says, no, Rabbi Akiva would be so angry. He would walk into this service of thoughtful, knowledgeable prayer leaders and say, hey, me and my buddies invented this service 2,000 years ago from whole cloth because we just lost the temple. Right? We were playing jazz. We just, we lost our one way to connect with God. We came up with something to meet the needs of the moment. Are you telling me that in 2,000 years, nothing significant has happened to the world or to the Jewish people that would wake you up to say, what do our people need now? And with that, he gave me a chizuk, which is, in some ways an encouragement, but in some ways like a bzz with a cattle prod, like, go, help fix this, right? Help imagine services that could be more uplifting for people, that could help people learn more in ways they don't have access to now. And so that's something that I've been carrying for several years now. Really appreciate that PJTC is a place where we get to exercise that creativity within the context of, holding people's spiritual experience. For some people, it's not Shabbos unless you go from page 12 to page 514 in 2.5 hours flat. And when I say pages, I'm talking about the prayer book. For some people, it's not Shabbos unless you do every single prayer that they grew up doing. And I want to honor that, right? I don't want to wreck their experience. But I also want to open things up so that people who can't connect now can. So that's kind of the intention of this question. There, I lifted up the curtain. You've seen the man pulling the Wizard of Oz levers. But I want to know, what is it that's important to people about services that if we got rid of it provisionally for now, you would really miss? I think the learning component is something that I would miss very much, and not just because I'm a teacher, but I think if I went to a service that was just prayers, there are some services that are you could just be there to pray because you need to pray, and that's fine. I would miss the Torah learning. I would miss opening the scroll up, or at least opening up a book that has the same words as the scroll and talking about it, asking questions about it. I would miss singing. If it was like, okay, we're just going to read a few prayers and not sing, I would miss that very much. So Karen says Zoom onegs can be fun. I really like that idea of like a Zoom oneg Shabbat. Oneg is basically just refreshments. There's Kiddush, which is sort of a particular ritual of honoring the Sabbath with wine or other grape product or other celebratory beverage of your choice, and some challah, and then with some very specific blessings, to God who gave us these things. And then there's oneg. Oneg just means delight. It means that's what you do after you do all the things you have to do. You just have a cookie and you schmooze with people. You have a cookie, a little bit of decaf. If you work in a synagogue, if you have a cookie, have some coffee, have some schnapps, just hang out and get to and catch up with your friends. So Zoom oneg Shabbats that's actually I don't think we've tried that. We've had Zoom Havdalah, but not Zoom oneg. As Ruth says, Ruthie Honey says, I miss singing and praying together. Me too. I have a bit of privilege there in that with the cantor and with our davening team, I still get to sing. It's not the same. I don't want to denigrate that experience. It's not, but I'll say it's not the same as singing with a bunch of folks in the room together. But at least I still get to sing with some very talented musicians. Not being one, so I'm good for backup. I'm like the doo-wop boy of Shabbos. Karen says Zoom oneg is bring your own dessert and we talk about big questions. I really like that idea. Oh my goodness, we'll give that a try. I'll say some people have been asking, hey, why don't you just put everything on Zoom? Everything else is on Zoom. Why not Shabbos? And given that, we have overcome some discomfort with using technology on Shabbos. You spend years and years saying, okay, everybody put your phones away. And now it's, hey, everybody take your phones out to attend services. We have overcome some of that. Zoom services isn't something that we've tried yet. But I'll say it's not entirely off the table. Part of the reason that I personally have been hesitant to have Zoom services. I do like that kind of interactivity. I do have a little bit of discomfort around encouraging people to type and things like that for reasons of honoring the Sabbath. Mostly, I hate buggy software. Mostly, I don't know about you, but I'm trying to remember a Zoom meeting that didn't have somebody's connection crap out, that didn't have somebody, unmute themselves while their kids are yelling in the background and all that, or have to take a phone call. Just there's always something that happens in a Zoom call, and when it's just like a regular meeting, it's organic, it's human, it's life, it's fine. But when we're together in an intentional prayer space, trying to create an ongoing sense of transcendence and spirituality, to then suddenly have somebody's doorbell ring in the background kind of takes us all out of the moment. And so that's why I've been a little bit hesitant. But I've also recently attended a service that was very well managed and was a holy experience. So it is possible. As Dakota Black says, did you say schnapps? Yes, I did. Schnapps. Schnapps is means, in my mind, means a little something different in Yiddish than in general. Like before Jewishness, when people said schnapps, I always thought of like, ugh, that peach stuff that tastes like candy. But generally speaking, schnapps is shikur. It's hard alcohol, something above wine proof, let's say. It all qualifies as schnapps. Natalie shares music is indispensable. Misha Berach, Bar Mitzvah, the musical component of that. Love that mute microphone button. Yes, it's nice to be able to say, oh, shh, shh, knock, knock, who's there? Shh, from Austin Powers. So listen, I really appreciate people sharing this stuff. This is really helpful for me, helpful for PJTC in understanding what is it that people get out of services. And I have to be humble and ask this question because I love services, right? I didn't get into this business because I don't love services. And the more I learn about them and more I learn about the history of them, where the liturgy comes from, what mood it's trying to engender, the more I appreciate the art form of it. But I also like opera, in the sense that, hey, here's 5 hours of something I barely understand, language-wise. So I geek out on stuff like that. And so sometimes it's hard for me to get out of that space and say, okay, is this working for everybody the way it's working for me? A few years ago, I had the privilege, I won't say it was a joy because it was a funeral, but there was a funeral in one of the teachers in the synagogue school where I was working. lost a nephew, car accident, very untimely. But our whole community turned out for her family to go to their church. And if I'm not mistaken, it was like, I want to say it was Persian Christian Orthodox service. And so we're in this very long service. At least I'm going to say about 70% of which was in a couple of different languages that I didn't understand. And I had this moment where I'm like, okay, now I get it. Now I get it why people don't like Jewish services. Now I get it why people don't like services that are 2.5 hours long in a language that is opaque to them. And that really gave me some humility to understand other people's experience of traditional Jewish services. Vit Yermalowitz says, I believe streaming services is the best formula, unlike Zoom. Zoom is probably good for some limited amount of people gathered, more, let's say, a private occasion. Yeah, I mean, I think I do think there's an optimal point of participation in Zoom. You know, whether it's 4 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, then there's a diminishing return on what can be accomplished. Oftentimes when I teach on Zoom, I much prefer teaching in a seminar format where people are talking with each other. Zoom can make that difficult just because it takes out some of the human dynamic that makes group discussions work, although I've heard of good group discussions happening on Zoom. Dakota, let's see. Vit says, on live stream, I miss more narrow shots, especially during the Torah reading, close-up shots. Dakota Black says, I have a question, not on topic, forgive me. I am planning to put a mezuzah on my doorpost. Is there anything I should do when I put it up? Great question. So there is a bracha. The bracha is lipo mezuzah. It's, it's like any other blessing that you say when you're performing a mitzvah. We bless Baruch atah Hashem Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu X, right? We bless God, Master of the universe, who makes our lives special with commandments, including the commandment to blah. And in this case, it's to affix a mezuzah or likboa mezuzah. This is part of a slightly larger ceremony called Chanukat Habayit, or dedicating a home. And so there is a particular prayer you can say. I'll see that and raise it. I'll add to that. Just pause before you're doing it and just think about the intention you're trying to create while affixing a mezuzah. Because when you put a mezuzah on your doorpost, you are in essence declaring to yourself and everybody who might pass through your doorpost that this is a holy space, that this is a Jewish space, that those traditions, those intentions, that wisdom is meant to guide the people who are dwelling in this home. And so just think about, okay, when you're about to affix it, say, okay, I'm making this into a Jewish home. What does that mean to me? What do I want that to mean to other people who come into this home? And just pause and meditate on that for a second. Is this going to be a home of hospitality, right? Is this going to be a home of peace, where we encourage wholeness and absence of meanness and that kind of thing? So just pause and reflect on that for a second. Then look for that bracha. It's in most prayer books, I think. Sometimes it even comes with your mezuzah and like a little piece of paper in the box. Pause, reflect on what creating that Jewish space means to you, and maybe the intention you want to set for other people in the space. Then say the blessing, and then affix the mezuzah, and then just take a deep breath and enjoy your Jewish home. So let's see. In my Zoom minion, we designated a prayer reader, a kol kahal, someone who screen shares the Siddur text, and someone who manages the Zoom mute. Rabbi shares his view of the Torah text. We had 210 at a recent bar mitzvah, and all went well. Kudos to the team. That's what I've discovered, is that no amount of technology can replace the human element of sort of creating that holy space and managing it. And that's where, again, this Zoom funeral that I attended, I'll confess, I was a little bit skeptical, because I've seen so many Zoom calls go so badly in hilarious and unhilarious ways. I was like, all right, I hope this goes well. And then it was on Zoom. Everybody has Zoom. Like, what's special about this? And then I saw the amount of organization that went into it, where people had their jobs to do in addition to the people who were speaking, and it just made it a holy occasion. So if you are going to do Zoom anything, especially if you're creating holy space, just think about what does it mean to create that space? What are the particular tasks that need to be done so that it doesn't become just another Zoom call with people off camera and weird noises and bad connections and all those things. Let's see. Vit shares on the downside. Once I have a fixed mezuzah, local priests stop coming with blessings during Christmas. So I'm sorry. That's interesting. Oh, that's great. Let's see. So listen, everybody, I really appreciate everybody sharing your hearts, sharing your Torah with us today. Certainly, as we're going forward and thinking about different ways of celebrating Shabbat at the PJTC community, there's going to be learning. There's going to be singing. There's going to be many instances of our traditional liturgy that people can follow along with great comfort in that it's been stable for hundreds of years, if not thousands. And things are going to be a little different. So when you learn more about that, when we introduce these things, I highly encourage everybody to check them out. Not just to experience them, but also to give us feedback, because that's going to help us grow in the future. With that, I'm going to go ahead and shut out today's like we're keeping score. I'm going to go ahead and close out today's learning. I really appreciate everybody who comes, whether you're here once a week, twice a week, nonce a week, and this is your first time. Anybody who's curious about Judaism is always welcome to learn with me and all my friends on this chat, whether you're coming on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, or Twitch. It's always great to learn with you. Until next time, Pasadenians and my heroes everywhere, peace.